Very good evening, gentlemen. Welcome back to A2Y. Sorry, I was trying something.
What a way to start the start the session. Maybe people will think this is like planned and like you're chopping papers.
I was actually trying out something, Asif,
Uh,
because anyway, let's start. So welcome again to A2Y. And the last couple of weeks we were talking about the process of innovation and how we help companies and individuals to create a innovative mindset, Asif. So last couple of weeks we talked about observation, we talked about networking, we talked about what else? Questioning, and then
Questioning.
we said we are going to talk about a special topic today, and that's experimenting. And this is
Uh,
something I always love doing, Asi. So let's start.
yeah, yeah.
How is it
Before,
been?
not bad. Yes, us betting on. Before we start the session, I wanted to know that you did a show very recently. No, was it last week?
It was Saturday, Asi. Saturday.
Like we couldn't talk about it. How was it? What happened?
Actually, yeah. We were so busy the last couple of days. We were supposed to talk about it. It was a
Yeah.
success. It
Uh,
was actually. I mean, I have mixed feelings. My business partner who invested on it was extremely happy. The
hmm,
audience was extremely happy. It went very well. Actually, better than expected.
right.
Personally, also it was much better than I expected. But there were certain things I was actually it's related to today's topic. I was
Okay.
experimenting. So today we are going to talk about experimentation. So I think it's a good question that you asked. It's related to what we are going to talk. There were certain things I wanted to experiment,
Hmm,
and one thing I always believe is you will never know till you try. And in
hmm,
life, most of the time we regret and we think like aparadi, I could have done that or I should have done
hmm,
that.
hmm.
Or we will try and when we fail, we regret saying it's a waste of my effort, it's waste of my money, waste of my
Yeah.
time. I failed. But I think one of the main things as an innovator is to keep trying things, keep experimenting things, and keep changing things. Of course, if you're doing the same thing over and over and you're failing, that's stupidity. But
Hmm,
every time if you're changing things, then you're experimenting. So actually, what happened was, Asi, from last September, I debuted my show in Dubai, and that was a theater show. We did it in a
hmm,
theater, a small theater, and it was a success. However, people who came for the show, when they were leaving, I realized they came in groups. They came as friends, they came as families, and I overheard some of them said, "Okay, so where do we go now?" Because it was early, they wanted to go out for dinner. Some, in fact, said if this show had dinner also, it would have been a
hmm.
nice option. So that gave me the idea, see, to test to see what if we have a dinner theater kind of thing. What if we have a show and we have
Okay.
dinner soon after that, so people can stay around, mingle around. I will have time to talk to them, get feedback
Yes.
about the
Hmm,
show. So this is exactly what we did. So we took a five-star hotel, we booked 70 seats, and so the good thing was we filled 70 seats. We really filled
wow.
70 seats. We had a house full.
Right.
However, I wanted to see whether we can get tourists, in the sense people who are visiting Dubai for short stay, who will want to have a night out with entertainment followed by
Hmm,
dinner and fill
hmm,
it out. Now that is where I would say we failed. That is where we couldn't really win, because most of the people who came were known contacts or people who followed me on TikTok or Instagram or who saw our advertisement. And they've been residing in UAE for a while. There was only, I would say, very few people who were
hmm.
staying either in the hotel or in the close vicinity who came for the show. So
Right.
in that sense, I didn't get the right audience. But it was experimentation. So it's a good thing. There were a lot of things that we discovered that worked, that didn't work. Rather, we'll probably have another discussion on that. Otherwise, we are going on a different direction. So
Yeah.
today's topic, experimentation.
So technically, what you did was you tested your assumptions, right?
Definitely. My hypothesis, because
Hmm,
you would always think this will work, this will not work. That's
hmm,
what we feel. And most of the time, I see what happens is people are very subjective. I might say, no, it's not going to work. You may say it will work. But it's your
Yes.
subjective way and it's my subjective way. There's no
Yes.
objectivity. So the only way objectivity happens is if you can experiment. And in experimenting, as we can always talk about three ways. One is where you try out new experiences, right? So, for an example, you experience things. You maybe go to a new country, maybe you try out a new product. So that is trying out a new experience, right? Or you take things apart. You basically take something that's working and you break it to pieces. It can be a
Mm.
process, it can
Mm.
be an idea, or it can be even a product, right?
Mm.
Like what we call reverse engineering. You kind of
Mm.
break things apart. Or
Mm.
third is you test your new ideas like what I did. If it's an
Yeah.
experience, you test it by giving the service. If it's a product, you do it with minimum viable product and MVP.
Yeah.
You build a prototype. So these are the three forms of basically how you can experiment something. Now, if you don't experiment something, you are never going to try things out. And this is the classic mistake
Mm.
anyone makes as especially companies, especially product owners, and if you're a technical person, if you come from a
Mm.
functional background, I say you know how many times we've gone into startups and companies where engineers are building, trying to make the product perfect without really putting it out to the market. Now
True.
that is the main reason or one of the main reasons for product or service to fail because everything is in your mind. You are trying to test it in your mind without putting it to the real users. Now, example,
Mm.
Apple. I always like to take Apple examples. The the Apple iPad was actually invented before the iPhone, but
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that.
the Apple iPad was invented before, but they shelved it. They
Mm.
said no. Before we go for a big device, let's make the device smaller. Because at that time, the trend was
Mm.
to make devices small. And can you remember we used to even have like small phones of this size, and we felt
Yes.
it so.
Yes.
The
Yes.
first time I remember I got one of those phones, I didn't know where to say hello because we were used to telephones like this where you have a mouthpiece. And I was
Yes.
like,
Yes.
like this, trying to talk like this, right? Because it
Yeah.
became so small, you don't even know how to talk. So it was a new experience. Now, in a time like that, you give a tablet, which is a big
Mm.
device, people would not find anything innovative about it. They'll be like, so what? We have the laptop already. So they
Yes.
shelved it and they tested something small and that worked. So sometimes, even in advertising, if you look at digital advertising, you
Mm.
need to experiment messages, you need to experiment audience. I just said I wanted to experiment audience, I wanted to experiment tourists, but what I got was something else. So that's an audience experiment. You need to experiment creatives. Maybe your messaging, the copy you use, the images you use, you need to experiment that. You need to experiment different services.
Mm.
I'll tell you a classic example. This is a Sri Lankan example. When sanitary ware was introduced to a rural community, okay,
Mm.
uh, they had that challenge because ladies were not used to using that. And when the salespeople went and gave the sanitary ware,
Mm.
even the mudalalis of the shop were like, "Oh, පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ නෑ මාත්‍යෝ අපේ ගමේ. This will not
Mm.
move." So the sales guy was a bit, he was like not happy, but he said, anyway, I was given this target to sell. You keep it, Mudalali. If it sells, it
Mm.
sells. And he went out. You might have heard the story. And after a month, when he walked in, the shop owner was like, come. I was waiting for you. Where's the next stock? And then this guy was surprised and he asked, like, so what happened? Oh, everybody, it sold out. I was actually waiting for you. You never came. I was waiting for the next stock. And he said, like, amazing. How did this happen? Who bought it? You see, it was all the farmers who had bought it because they used this pesticide and they wanted a
Yes.
face mask. So it was bought for a different purpose because it can be pasted and they felt it can be used like a mask. However, it was a different situation but different requirement, right? So it's basically what happens is sometimes a product you build, a service you build might not be even used for its intended requirement.
True. True.
And then
So yes, I will have to interrupt you
yeah,
while
go
you were
ahead.
talking about that story.
Yes.
Story, the original story also came to my mind. There's this Indian story called. There's a movie actually named
Watch
Padman.
that man. Yes.
Arunachalam. If I can remember his name, Arunachalam. So his story is brilliant, and obviously in that movie itself, he's doing these experimental activities like quite often, and
Yeah. He's chased out from
people
his whole village, right? His family leaves him.
exactly beautiful movie to watch. Sorry to
Correct.
divert from the main topic.
No,
Yeah,
no, no.
so
That's
you
good.
can.
Thank you for reminding me of that movie because it's a classic example of how passionate he was on his product. Now there,
Hmm.
he was very adamant. He was very passionate. He knew this product is a need, and against social norms, against his family, against his community, he was actually going and trying
Hmm.
out things, and he was trying it in different ways. He was trying it in ways where he was even considered like a pervert at one point, right?
Yeah.
Because he was trying to see how this works. So sometimes experimentation requires, some what you call having that guts to go beyond social norms and being an innovator. It's not only
Hmm.
experimental. Being an innovator itself, you need to go beyond norms. My story about magic is something
Yeah.
classic like that. See, people, even my own family, my parents, when
Hmm.
I'm in family with parents, they didn't believe that I could earn from magic. So I started challenging the status quo, saying, why not? If Las Vegas, there are top magicians, if there are celebrities, why not? So same thing. And that's one of the reasons why you see, like when it's Dubai, I looked at it a different way because if you look at Sri Lanka, I realized Sri Lanka market is matured, it's
Yeah.
saturated. You can't do much. End of the day, the community is small. You can't grow. But in a
Hmm.
market like Dubai, where there's constant tourists, there's 1 million visitors every month, and it keeps
Hmm.
growing, changing. You have the opportunity to try new things. You can try different things, and you will never know till you try things. So experimentation, therefore, is very very important, and you should never now, even when I'll go back to my show, for sorry for bringing it back, we had so many things that we wanted to perfect. But
Hmm.
me and my business partner thought, no, if we wait for perfection, we will never try. One example
Hmm.
is the date. We originally had it in December, and then we had the Sri Lankan Ditwa issue. So we had to
Yes.
postpone because of the community, and we didn't feel right to have entertainment in a time that country was
That's right.
doing. So the next option was January. We felt was too early. We didn't know
Hmm.
whether Sri Lanka will recover and all. So we thought February. But what we didn't realize was we booked it in the fasting week. This is the first week of fasting, or last week was the first week of fasting, and that Saturday, most people were going out for what you call the iftar meals in the evening, because after breaking fast, you go for iftars, right? And most people we spoke to said, hey, if we would have come, but we have iftars and we can't be there. So then we realized, okay, how can we pivot? That's something we will talk later. We spoke to the hotel, and we anyway had a finger food menu other than the buffet.
Yeah.
Some spring
Yeah.
rolls, some samosas, coffee, tea, and beverages. So we asked the
Hmm.
hotel, can you do a favor? Can you open it a little early at 6:45, though the show starts at 7:15? And can we
Yes.
maybe have dates on the table? If you want to replace something, please do that. But can you have dates so that we can support the Muslim community and have them to
Hmm.
break fast in our premises? And it
Yes.
worked.
Yes.
Next time,
Wow.
everyone was talking to us, and they said like, "Hey, we have iftar." We said exactly. This is the
Hmm.
classic moment for you to come and enjoy with your family. Walk in.
Yeah.
We've got there's a mosque close by. You can breakfast there. You can
Wow.
then have the iftar meal, enjoy the show, and have a grand buffet after that. And it worked.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Brilliant.
So you need to pivot. You might not have that intended use. And if we listen to others, people said like it's a wrong weekend. Why I put in that? In Dubai, every weekend is a wrong weekend because there's so many things happening. Right? There's batch parties. There's community parties. There's visitors coming in. There's mega shows happening. So
Hmm.
you'll never get your show done. But we stopped overthinking, and we went ahead.
Hmm.
So one thing I've seen is this overthinking, and we discussed about it earlier also. See, If you
Yes.
start waiting for the perfect moment and if you start building the perfect product, you will never
Yeah.
put things out. We have learned the hard way, right? You and I
Absolutely.
have learned the hard way where we looked at even A to Y. If we remember the way we started, one evening, we thought, let's tomorrow start tomorrow. Let's not
Yeah.
overthink. Let's start tomorrow, right? And it
Yes.
worked. We ran for a couple of months with that A to
Yeah.
Y.
Yes.
So experiment. That's the main thing I want to tell. Even if it's a low fidelity version, what you say, the basic requirements, go ahead with it. Now, for
Mm.
us, another example I'll tell you is, so we used a ticketing company called Platinum List. It's the most popular ticketing company in UAE when it comes to events like this. And we were supposed to have QR code scanners which we hire from them. Now we decided, let's not do that. Let's go with our mobile because we have the list of people who have booked, and let's do a physical verification because for us to invest and do that, it's going to add more cost. So we looked at different
True.
costs we can cut down. What are the
Mm.
basic things we can go with?
Mm.
And we did it that way. It didn't impact us at all. Separate to that, we just gave a handband. So when people walked in, we gave the physical handband with color, so we know who's
Yeah.
coming. Ticket only, show only, buffet only, and we just ran it. So we just experimented, learned things, learned lessons, and we are ready for the next one. So the next one obviously is going to be different. We might even
Mm.
not have a dinner theater thing. Maybe we'll try something else. Maybe we might have
Yes.
a booth theater. We might have a outdoor event. We never know.
I think experimenting things actually goes very much aligning with observation, because you observe the
Correct.
patterns, observe the environment, observe the behaviors. You manage to experiment. I mean, when you talk about your show, and obviously there are areas that you can still think of to improve, and also there are areas that you feel, I mean, these areas has been successful.
Definitely, Asi. I would also say it's not only observation, it's all the points you talked. Networking, because I was able to network with people, I was able to get the feedback, what they felt. I asked them which act was the best act for you.
Mm.
What are your thoughts? Some said, hey, what about you introducing another artist like a violinist while we're having dinner? Why don't you have some other thing before you start? So, there's no idea. So I was getting good feedback. Some are
Yeah.
practical, some are not. But you'll never know that if you don't ask. So that's
True.
questioning. So it's networking, questioning, observation, same things that we are talking about. And then the last point that we'll talk next week,
Yeah.
associational thinking. So
Mm.
these skills or these principles will make you become a better innovator, start innovating things, doing new things, trying new things. So what we did was, I mean, mentalism is nothing new. It was
Yeah.
an art that was there for a long time. But what we innovated was the delivery method, the way we launched it, the way we tested it, and
Mm.
several other components within the show that we experimented. Even my act, from what I did in September to this, I experimented some new things because
Mm.
there were repeat audience members,
Yes.
and I wanted to test some new things because there's no way I can test, especially in my art. I can't test in
Yes.
front of a camera. I can't test in front of a mirror. I really
True.
need to test it in real humans. So the only
Mm.
way is during shows that I do these new things and try out what works, what doesn't. And believe me, as a entertainer, this is very important. Getting feedback is very important, and it's same for a comedian. Take a stand-up comedian. How would
Mm.
he or she know which jokes would work? Because one thing being funny for him is going to be different to his real audience, and if you speak to them, they'll say like, it's so surprising. What I
True.
felt funny is not what the audience felt funny.
Yes.
Sometimes something you randomly say brings more laughter than what you initially planned to do. This as an entertainer,
True.
that always the case. You play guitar, you sing, you dance, you're a
Mm.
toastmaster, you do speech. I'm sure you had that experience when you
Absolutely.
plan it. What you think that's going to be a hit is sometimes not, is not what becomes the hit. It's something
Yes.
totally random, something maybe even you consider stupid that becomes a hit. Maybe if you
Mm.
have an example, you can finally share it as it before I finish.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember when I was actually competing for humorous speech contests during the Toastmasters timeline. I think about 5 or 6 years back. And obviously, when you do the humorous speech contest. You know where the punchlines are, and you know you anticipate at what point the audience will react. And there was a punchline in that speech, right at the very beginning, and I did it. Nobody laughed. So in my mind, I was like confused. I was going through the confusion, and then anyway I continued it. Uh, so the surprisingly, there are places that I didn't expect the audience to laughed actually. So it's a good example. While you were talking about it, also that memory actually came to me.
It is very true. And this is no different to a mobile app or a website or a product or a service. So many times, like if you look at pundits on social media today, they will comment and say, "Oh, Karyanne, oh, mehemai karanne, this is how you should do, that is how you should do." You never know. You
Yeah,
need to really test it with your real users, your real audience out there, your real customers or prospects. That is when you get the real feedback. So the lessons today is think about these three things: try out new experiences, break things apart, and try out your ideas with prototyping or new experiences like what we were talking.
yeah,
Unless you do it, unless you experiment it, you will never know. And that is a data driven approach. If you take experimentation as a data driven approach, your product, your service is going to succeed. You will obviously pivot. We'll talk about pivoting another day. But this feedback you get, the observations you get, the questions you ask are going
yeah,
to make your product service better. And this is the only way you can improve your innovation journey. And in our workshop that we talked about, Asi, we go through
mm,
this in depth. And please message us, ask us. We can share you a little booklet about these points that we are talking about. Or if your organization requires us to do a 1 day workshop, we guarantee we will do a workshop. You will go back with innovative ideas which are implementable. And
yeah,
we are also now incorporating AI into it. So we'll be using AI tools during the experimentation, and you will have real things to show your stakeholders saying, hey, 1 day, several hours, this is what we came up with. I need this budget so I can execute this. So I think we've gone beyond our time, Mazi.
yes.
Any last thoughts?
Well, we wanted to thank the audience who actually messaged us to receive that booklet and the framework. And I know, uh, you need to have a little bit of courage as well. And the best part is we got two prominent CEOs in Sri Lanka who's handling the organizations actually messaged us and required that framework.
Yes.
So thank you so much for that. We can't disclose the name. And even if you are listening to us right now, if you want these frameworks, just send us a message, write to us, so we will be there to help you and guide you through.
Definitely. So with that, we are ending today's episode of A2Y on experimentation. Keep following us. I'm Yasas.
And I'm Asi.
Signing off, we are Yasas and Azi and Yasas. See you next week with our last topic on Innovators DNA, associational thinking. See you next week.